Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited because today I'm doing something a little different on my channel. I actually have my real life bestie on here, Allison, who is going to discuss a book we both read. It's actually a book she read first, so we didn't buddy read it at the same time, but she loaned it to me afterwards, and that is We Were Never Here by Andrea Bartz. And I don't know what happened to Allison. She popped out. I'm going to try to get her back in here. There we go. I think she's back.
I'm back.
Well, thank you for coming on my channel, Allison.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting me borrow your book. We
Absolutely.
we do tend to swap books a good bit, so that's nothing unusual for us.
Oh yeah, I have some of your books at home.
So I apologize, everyone. I am a bit nasally. I may actually blow my nose during this broadcast. The pollen is just really kicking my butt right now. So if I don't sound the greatest, that's why. But yeah, I'm so excited to discuss this book. So We Were Never Here. This is a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. It's one of those psychological thrillers that we both really love. So just to get us started, Allison, what were your overall impressions of this book?
My overall impressions, it was a little slow getting into the book. Once I felt like we got like maybe page 100 or so, it picked up its pace. I was definitely like, wow, this girl's crazy.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know if I'd want her to be my friend.
Yeah, I do. It's funny because um, when I first started reading the book, like obviously I knew a little bit about it already because you tipped me off a little bit. So I started putting little, tabs, not too many, but I didn't have any red flags. But if I had red flags, that would have been perfect because immediately I started seeing all of these red flags with one of our main characters, Kristen. Uh, Book time with Ryan, nose blowing live, huge creative move. Definitely not planned that way, Ryan, but thanks for popping in. Always nice to see you. Um, yeah, of if you were going to give this book a rating out of 5 stars, Allison, what do you think you would give it?
I think I would give it a 3. There were some things that the author just kind of left unanswered in there, like why, like why was like the background. I wanted more background on Kristen's story,
Right.
like
Yeah.
how she became who she was.
Yeah, and I guess I should forewarn people that we will be talking about some spoilers in this discussion because we can't really talk about this book without spoiling some things. So if you are heavily invested in reading this book for yourself, you may, want to skip out. But if you know you're not going to read it, I think you're in for some fun here because this book did take a couple turns to crazy town, and yeah, I'm with you. It's not the best thriller I've ever read for sure. um the premise was really neat though. I really liked the travel element to it because we're following two friends and they're traveling around the world, and I mean, who doesn't love a girls trip? But
Right.
I can honestly say, our girls' trips don't end up with us, hiding bodies. So, um, a little less intense, but yeah. So I liked the premise, but I wanted more of the backstory, like you said. I don't really feel like when we got to the end of the book, we knew exactly who Kristen was and why she was the way she was. We didn't really get a lot of those answers. Um, what did you think about Emily's character?
Emily, I feel like she, like in the beginning, she seemed like a really sweet girl and she's, quiet. And so she maybe latched on to Kristen because Kristen was a very outgoing person. And then I think that allowed Kristen to maybe manipulate her more so because of the more of the calm demeanor that she has.
Yeah, You're totally right on that one. She was a bit frustrating though because I feel like she was always way behind us in figuring out
Yes.
what was going on with Kristen. It's like, okay, I have noticed all of these red flags, and yet you're still, committed to this friend of yours. Um, so that was a bit frustrating. And I'm like you. I feel like she was a pretty naive character, kind of weak, and she does latch on to Kristen. And it really seemed like the only time she even thought about standing up to Kristen was when she had this new love interest, Aaron,
Yeah.
kind of by her side or involved. And that was a little frustrating because I feel like she never really grew out of this cycle of like depending on someone. So, this sort of like codependent relationship, I don't feel like Emily really grows out of that.
I feel like she's always dependent on someone.
Yeah. Now, the Aaron relationship obviously was less toxic
Yeah.
than the one with Kristen, but still, I'm like, oh, can you just get some of your own strength and intestinal fortitude? I just feel like she
Yes.
had one moment, I guess, one moment at the end, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this trip that they go on to Chile. So at the beginning of the book, the trip is kind of like going well. Um, Emily and Kristen seem to be bonding again. And then after Kristen takes Paulo home from the bar, she ends up killing him. And Emily walks in on the aftermath of this, and Kristen, of course, says it's self defense. What were your thoughts on how all of that unfolded? Did you believe Kristen that it was self defense, or were
I
you suspicious?
I was definitely suspicious because she literally, like, as soon as Kristen found out that Emily had a boyfriend, and Emily was not going to go on this like huge backpacking tour around the world with her, that all of a sudden she gets this guy, takes him back to her room, and he winds up dead.
Yeah. Yeah, the timing just seemed very convenient there. I mean, right off the bat, I was like, okay, this is obvious that she was jealous. She realized she was losing control of Emily, and Emily was now, going to be in this relationship with Aaron, which she would not be a part of. So yeah, I was suspicious from the beginning, and I feel like Emily was too, because she actually asked her a couple of questions. She didn't ask her too much, but I think Kristen was like, "What, you don't believe me?" or something like that. Like, I
Yeah.
think Emily knew in the back of her mind, like, this is unbelievable. What are
Like,
the
how can this
odds?
happen a second time?
Right. Like, what are the odds that Emily's attacked the year before and has to kill this guy in self defense, or Kristen kills him for her? Um, And now again, here we are again with another dead man on a trip, another body to dispose of. I mean, this was um yeah, unbelievable. She should have asked a few more questions, I think, on that one.
And the one thing that I thought about too recently was when they were trying to dispose of Paolo's body, like Emily had gotten out of the car. Where did Kristen go in the car?
Was she driving?
Kristen was driving.
Yeah.
And then she
Yeah.
told Emily to get out, and then she had gone left for a while. And so Emily's in the dark in this desert town.
Yeah.
So it makes me
That
wonder,
that's a great point, Allison, because when Emily was attacked, the descriptions that we get of that event, it makes it seem like Emily was in such a state of shock, which, I mean, who would blame her if she was attacked? She's in such a state of shock that she's pretty much comatose. Like, she's not able to function. She's not really able to, um, you know, help as much with coming up with this disposal plan and cover
yeah,
up plan. And I feel like Kristen takes charge. And in this situation, you would assume Kristen would be the same way, but no, she still
Yeah.
is in control of herself. Actually, Book Time with Ryan said, was it Amanda Knox-esque? And actually, it very much was Amanda Knox-esque. And that's actually something that was mentioned several times in the book. And that's actually something that Kristen used to kind of manipulate Emily into going along with this cover up plan, because she actually referenced Amanda Knox and how, if we don't cover up this body, we're going to end up just like her. So, yeah, very, very much kind of a part of the storyline there.
Absolutely.
Um, so, sorry, I was just looking at the chat. So yeah, that was interesting to me, the differences there. Um, why do you think Emily agreed to go along with Kristen? I keep wanting to say Kirsten. I don't know why. Um, why do you think Emily went along with Kristen with these cover ups? And what do you think she should have done, or what would you have done?
I think Emily was honestly scared and didn't know what to do. And so she just followed along because Kristen's been her friend since college. For me, I would definitely have called the authorities if I was in a situation. I would
Yes.
have definitely called the authorities.
Yes. And, you know, here's my thing too. She hasn't been friends. I mean, I've known you since we were like 4 years old.
Yes.
So I feel like there's a good background there. I feel like I know your character pretty well. But with these two, I mean, they met in college. So there's a lot that they don't know about each other, obviously. We find out through the book. So, um, yeah, I was kind of shocked that she would go along with it the second time. I wasn't so shocked about the first time because, Emily was attacked. She was traumatized. And so, um, when you're in a state of shock, I can imagine, when someone comes in and takes charge, you just kind of go along with it.
Yes.
But with the second one, yeah, I was really shocked that she did not reach out to the authorities at some point because, I mean, my goodness. Or at the very least, I wouldn't have gone on another trip with this lady to a remote location. I don't know.
Also, and the other thing, Kristen always insisted being off the grid. Like to
Yes.
have the phones turned off when they were talking and having conversations. She always insisted.
Look, Mark was making fun of my tabs. He made a comment in the chat about O'Carrie and her tabs. But literally, the first thing I tabbed as a red flag was I dropped my phone into Kristen's hand and grinned. Digital detox commencing now. She forced her to hand over her phone. And I just thought that was so ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I mean, boundaries here.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
was a red flag from the beginning.
Very beginning.
And then let's see, there were a couple other things. The fact that she didn't want to mention to Kristen her new kind of blossoming relationship with Aaron. That was a red flag for me too. And of course, she tries to paint it in a different light. She says, "Of course, I wouldn't mention the other reason I stayed, Mom. Kristen, with her sky high standards for me, tended to be critical of my love interest." Now, I don't know. That stuck out for me because I feel like if you're a friend, you're supposed to be supportive. And of course, you have like standards for your friends, high expectations for like how you want them to be treated and, who, that sort of thing. Like, but it, it seems like she was inserting herself into all of this girl's relationships. I mean, going back to college.
Yeah.
and that was a red flag for me. Um, and Book Time with Ryan said 4-year-old loyalty shift daily. Um, they're talking about the fact that we've known each other since we were 4 years old. They're talking about kids. Um, but yeah, we've stuck it out, Ryan. So we've actually been pretty loyal.
Yeah.
Now, what other red flags? Because I actually have a list that I came up with. But were there any other red flags that you noticed with Kristen, with her personality or her manipulation, or anything else that you noticed besides kind of the overprotectiveness, with the relationships that Emily had and the weird cell phone detox thing?
Yeah, and I feel like I think she always disregarded Emily's feelings, like kind of blew them like, oh no, everything's great. Like they murdered somebody, they disposed of the body, but no, everything's great, Emily. No need to worry or stress. You don't need to go to a therapist to talk about anything.
That's right. No, can't do that. I actually looked up the revised list from mental health professionals and what they use to try to classify someone as a psychopath,
Ah,
and it pretty much lines up with. I mean, this is a psychological thriller, so we have to expect that there's going to be a psychopath in it somewhere, I suppose. But um, so the first one is glibness or superficial charm, and I think that speaks to what you were just saying. Everything's fine and she's so bubbly and wonderful, and she even goes over the top, with her stories about Chile. Like, she keeps mentioning this trip to Chile and these things that they did, and Emily's like, why are you talking about that? We
yeah,
don't need to talk about that.
yeah,
So yeah, the guys in the chat, um, yes, Mark, I was a goody two shoes.
I would too.
Right, Ryan, we were both definitely that. Ryan said it's just a front. No one expects the teacher's pet. So, perfect, perfect cover. Um, so yeah, she kept mentioning the Chile trip, which I thought was really weird. Um, the This is something on the list as well. The need for stimulation and proneness to boredom. That definitely fits with her because she kept wanting to go on these backpacking trips and she wanted to change jobs, and she'd already moved to Australia, but then she moves back to Wisconsin. So I could definitely see that fitting with her personality. Um, Parasitic lifestyle. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say she definitely fit that bill. Impulsivity, lack of realistic long-term goals. She doesn't really seem to have any long-term goals, really. She
no,
just is thinking about the next trip.
yeah.
Um, Juvenile delinquency.
She was institutionalized after the fire and the suicide, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So there's a fire, at her parents' house, and actually both of her parents die in the fire. And her mother was not supposed to be there at the time, but she was. Kristen was in the house too, right? She escapes. She goes to her Nana's house. And then shortly after, like within a few months of that event, her best friend, who also lived in the neighborhood, actually commits suicide. So there are lots of unanswered questions about that whole scenario, but it's because of that that Kristen ends up staying in this, institution. I don't know if she was actually there or if it was outpatient, but she definitely, was treated by a facility that dealt with juvenile delinquents.
And it
So,
makes me wonder, I know that there was mention that her friend Jamie was being abused by her father. Is it
yes.
a possibility that he may have been abusing Kristen as well?
Now, does that make you think a little bit differently about Kristen's character? Like
It
thinking that
can-
she could possibly be a victim here as well?
She could definitely, I feel like, pass as a victim if there was trauma and abuse within her household against her.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting because I thought about that a lot, and it's hard for me to feel sympathy for Kristen because I feel like her nana was scared of her. And if your own grandmother is scared of you, I don't know.
Yeah, that I like just it makes me wonder if that what led to her becoming what she became was
Yeah,
if there's possibility if there was abuse. But definitely she was scared like when Nana sent the message to Emily like something's off with Kristen, and at that point Kristen had willingly kidnapped Emily off to the, cabin in the woods.
yeah. Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit more from Nana. Um, and we didn't really hear what she knew.
I feel like Nana knew something and was holding back on us.
She did. But I also thought Nana might be a little bit nervous that Kristen was going to spill the beans to people about her father and
Yes.
how her father was a pedophile. Because if I remember this correctly, that was Nana's son. So this was her son
Yes.
that abused the neighborhood girl Jamie. So um, maybe we're reading it differently just because we know Kristen is, a murderer and unstable. That we're kind of looking at it through that lens. So maybe Nana is not scared of Kristen necessarily. Maybe she's just scared of her spilling the beans
Right.
on that dirty laundry.
That, that's a good point. That's a
Yeah.
very good point.
And I didn't even think about that until after I'd kind of sat here and kind of ruminated on it a little bit. And I'm like, well, maybe Nana doesn't really know anything too, scandalous about Kristen. Maybe she's just kind of fishing to see what Kristen has told Emily.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, what what did you think of the reveal that Kristen's friend Jamie is the one that set Kristen's house on fire? What did you think of that revelation? Did you believe it?
I almost wonder if the two of them didn't do it together or if even Kristen may have done it herself.
Yeah.
I almost don't feel like Jamie was alone in it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to believe that Jamie did that alone, just knowing from Jamie's mother and what she said, it was very common for Kristen to goad Jamie into behaving badly and to even blame Jamie for certain things. And like, I think she was talking about an incident where Kristen cut the heads off of Jamie's Barbie dolls and blamed it on Jamie, but they actually saw on the nanny cam that it was Kristen. Um, so that Mark says, I'm not sure I want to be friends with Kristen. No, no,
So
definitely not. She did plan a very interesting birthday surprise for Emily.
yeah,
Do you
she kind of
do you
like
want to tell about that?
yeah, so Emily was super excited to celebrate her birthday with Aaron, and here Kristen pops up from Australia and just kind of takes over and makes this whole scavenger hunt for Emily and leaves her like these clues, and that winds up taking her to this family cabin. And
When
this really
Emily
wasn't what
already
she
had
wanted.
plans,
Yeah,
yeah, she already had plans with her boyfriend, and Kristen just totally just totally took over. She just totally
Yeah.
took control. There were a couple things about that that really bothered me. The first thing was the wallet, because back in Chile, Emily's wallet was stolen. It was a green wallet that she found like at a thrift shop or something, and it was stolen. And Kristen found one almost just like it
Hmm.
and got Aaron to buy it for Emily's birthday. Now, I want your opinion on this because I came up with a theory. I think
Okay, you go
that
ahead.
I think that Kristen actually stole Emily's wallet while they were in Chile,
Hmm.
just to make Emily nervous that they may be tied back to the murder of the backpacker in Chile, Paulo.
Yes.
Um, and I wouldn't put it past Kristen to have placed the wallet with Paulo's things or with the body. Um, I just feel like she was that manipulative, and we know she has a proclivity for blackmail because she basically keeps like these burnt items from the crime
With
in
his
her house.
passport and different items he had, they like were burnt and she kept them.
Yeah. So very reckless, just no no regard for her friend or really herself.
Yeah.
Um, oh
Definitely
wow.
a psychopath, you know.
Don't tell on me, Ryan. Um, yeah, with
And she even had photos from Cambodia that she was using to blackmail Emily.
yeah, and that really makes me think back to the whole Jamie situation because I do feel like she if she didn't start the fire herself, I feel like she goaded Jamie into starting the fire. And of course, Jamie has a reason, her abuse that she suffered at the hands of Kristen's father. She has a reason there to want revenge. And I think that Kristen probably stoked those fires and pun intended there, and got got Jamie to light the house on fire. And I feel like she held that over Jamie's head. And I feel like Jamie's suicide may have been the result of Kristen's blackmailing
Yeah,
and
she
her
just,
manipulation.
yeah, because I could see like when you're pushed to a breaking point and you don't know what to do, if you're not a strong person, you that could happen.
Yeah, for sure. Um,
The other thing, she had scratched out every single photo of Jamie in all her yearbooks.
I was going to ask you about that. What do you think that was about?
You know, I wonder if like she's just not like she loved Jamie, but also at the same time hated that she killed herself
Hmm.
and took her away from her.
Yeah, I feel like for her, it's all about loss of control. And once she lost the control, um, with Emily, we saw that she became super reckless. She was willing to go to the authorities. She was willing to risk prison time herself, basically, to get Emily back on her, on her side or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, very, very strange there. That was disturbing. Um, it was also very disturbing that at the cabin, Emily found the dead rabbit. His throat had been cut, and Kristen had been talking earlier in the day about how the rabbits had made a mess of their cabin and she wanted to get rid of them or she wanted to kill them all or something like that. And then, of course, the rabbit ends up dead, and Emily's like, "Hey, what's the deal with the rabbit?" And she's like, "Oh, a fox probably got
Yeah.
him." That's a clear sign of someone with homicidal tendencies. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have, that's one of the things like with children, if you have children who like to torture or, kill little animals, that's a sign of things to come. And so yeah, that stood out for me. That
Yeah,
stood
and
out for me.
I just felt like the red flags just kept building, especially
Yeah.
when she wound up coming back to the United States. It just like she felt like she was losing control of Emily,
Yep.
and she was trying to gain it back, do whatever she could to gain that back.
Yep. Um, so everything came to a head in Phoenix. So Emily and her love interest Aaron, they go to Phoenix to try to get away from Kristen. And that's when everything kind of culminates because Kristen follows them out there. Um, what did you think of that confrontation between Emily and Kristen and Aaron?
Yeah, like so at first, okay, crazy enough to find out their location based off of an Instagram post, and then hops on a
Right.
plane to go to Phoenix to see her friend, thinking that she needs her help. I just feel like that's complete psychopathic, you know, quality right there. And then the whole conversation, like I'm not sure about Aaron. Like he's going along with all of this. And I don't
Yeah,
know people that would just go along with this.
yeah, so Aaron is an interesting character because he's supposed to be this like super nice guy, and Emily has like a really cute meet with him at the coffee shop where he works. And when Kristen pretty much just like co-ops his birthday plans for Emily, he goes along with
Just
it.
goes along with them.
He's trying to be very accommodating to Emily and her friend. Just super nice guy. And then when everything comes to a head in Phoenix and Paulo's body's been discovered, they're, really searching for a killer. And so, of course, Kristen and Emily are very nervous about this. Kristen's threatening to go to the authorities. Emily just confesses everything to him.
Yeah.
She tells him everything. She eventually tells him the whole story. And I mean, he's pretty much just like,
Oh, okay.
okay, babe.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just like, okay, you literally just started dating this girl, maybe within the last 6 months. And she's just divulged that her and her friend have been involved in two killings. Now, whether you believe the first one was justified because she was literally being attacked when that happened, but, two killings and these cover ups. And he just takes it all in stride, and he doesn't even say like, hey, we need some time apart, I need a minute to process this. She's actually the one, after she confesses everything, that tells him she needs some space, so they don't stay together for a while. And I just thought that was really odd. And yeah, I'm with you. That made me really wonder about Aaron. It's like, okay, is there something about this guy that we don't know? Because
Yeah.
he
Because
just
he
seemed so casual about the whole thing.
and I don't know many people that would just be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I still
It's
want to hang out with you though.
it's funny because psychological thrillers are kind of weird for me because of course you're invested in them for the twists, right? You want the twist, you want the moment, and then we complain when it's too unbelievable. So it's kind of a fine line. It's a
Yes.
fine line between giving us, the appropriate amount of twists and turns and reveals, and also not being too out there where it's too unbelievable or convoluted. Um, but yeah, um, Aaron, I just
Mhm.
couldn't get. That's the one thing about the ending that I was like, really, come on. The more I thought about the ending, the more I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Um, what did you think about the ending? And is there anything you would have changed?
So the ending, like when I first read it, I'm like, wait, what did I just read? I had to go back and reread the ending, like that last paragraph. I'm like, wait a minute, wait, what just happened? It really took me by surprise, like, wait a minute, is Kristen the serial killer, the real one? And we're because she's the, we're seeing everything from her point of view. Or has she been so manipulated by Kristen to the point she has Stockholm syndrome? And is this and like she still has this admiration for Kristen even though Kristen's dead and was manipulating her.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool moment. So like at before the very end when they're arguing, Kristen and Emily on this little cliff on this mountain path, and Emily pushes Kristen off the edge. And then she sees her friend kind of clinging to the side and she helps her back up. And they sit there and they look at each other. And Kristen just kind of smiles at her. And it's just kind of this realization that maybe they're not all that different,
Right.
that Kristen is kind of saying, yeah, you're just like me. Um, and I think that's kind of Kristen's MO, right? That's what she does. I
Yeah.
think that's what she did with Jamie as a kid. Jamie was a, well-behaved kid, and Kristen would get her to do these bad things. And I think this is a similar situation here. Kristen wants a partner in crime, literally,
Yes.
literally a partner in crime. And it was kind of a cool moment. The more I thought about that, I was like, okay, that was kind of cool. And then Kristen, after that little moment they share, she pushes Emily in front of this oncoming vehicle, which is none other than Aaron driving the vehicle, right? Um, and she knows that Aaron is going to swerve to miss Emily, and she ends up being killed. Um, so yeah, I kind of liked the ending the more I thought about it, because I was like, okay, this is too much. We have Aaron coming in with the vehicle, but then the more I thought about it, it was okay.
Yeah.
And I really liked what you pointed out at the very end, which was kind of a nod to Kristen. And what was that thing that was kind of a nod to Kristen at the end?
So at the end, her and Aaron are on vacation, and this tourist greets them. And instead of using their real names, they use the fictitious names. And that's what Kristen and Emily always did on their trips. When they met another tourist or a stranger, they used fictitious names.
Yeah, and that was interesting to me too, because I went back and looked, and when they first mentioned that in the book, they say something to the effect of, um, we use these pseudonyms just to show the other person that, hey, this interaction means nothing to us. Like, this is, you know, this person, this person is, uh, I'm sorry, I got lost in the chat. I was looking at the chat and got lost. Got lost. But yeah, I think that kind of shows their lack of empathy for people. I don't know. I mean, I know like that's kind of common, I guess, for girls to give fake names, like when guys approach them and they're not interested. But I
Hmm.
feel like the fact that, Kristen and Emily did this, and then Emily at the end should realize what a psychopath, Kristen was.
Yes.
And yet, like you said, she's still doing that. She's still using the fake names. And Aaron, here he is, he's in on it too.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I thought at first the ending was kind of crazy, because I was like, oh, wait a minute. Are Aaron and Emily now gonna go on some international rampage?
Yeah, no, that's the thought that crosses my mind. Like, has she retained some of the tendencies of Kristen? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, overall, I mean, the ending was okay. The more, like I said, the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. But I'm with you. It was a 3 out of 5 for me. It wasn't the greatest. It was a little frustrating to deal with Emily and how far behind she was and picking up on all
Yes.
these red flags. But pretty good for a Reese Witherspoon book club pick.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
some of those are kind of hit or miss for me, but um, so if they turned this book into a TV show or movie, and I think I read when I looked this book up that there is a Netflix adaptation in the works.
Oh,
So I don't know if they've cast anyone for it. I didn't look that deep into it, but if you were going to make this into a movie, who would you cast for the roles of Kristen and Emily?
Kristen, out of my head, and this is just because recently I watched Dropout on Hulu, Amanda Seyfried,
Yes.
because she played a great like psychopath in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. That's actually what I have written down because I was like, she is good at playing crazy. I
Yeah,
can't think of any more, crazy looking female character than Elizabeth Holmes, and
yeah,
she pretty much nailed that. Yeah,
she did. Even the voice change of Elizabeth Holmes, she nailed it
yeah,
perfectly.
no doubt. So that's funny. Yeah, we didn't coordinate our answers
We
there,
really did.
but so
For
who would you pick for Emily?
for Emily, I I'm really having a hard time with someone that's coming to my mind. I'm trying to think of someone that's meek and someone that could portray like this girl that has severe anxiety. What about you?
So I thought maybe for Emily, you could do Nina Dobrev
Okay.
from the Vampire Diaries. I think she's good. And she's good at playing innocent, but can go the other way.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. I like that pick.
I also wrote down Emma Watson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like people who kind of look like Girl Next Door,
Yeah.
and could kind of play that sort of um, kind of weak sort of character. I don't want that to sound mean. I hope that doesn't sound mean, but you know what I mean. Like that kind of
Yes.
naive, very innocent, um, easily manipulated. Like I feel like they could pull that off, um, for sure. So, was there anything else in the book that you wanted to mention or talk about or rant about?
I almost kind of would love to have a little more backstory on their Cambodia trip.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like knowing what happened in Chile, like did Kristen maybe set up something that could have caused what happened to happen in Cambodia?
I never thought of that.
And then why was she taking pictures if they were off the grid? Remember, off the grid.
Oh, yeah.
Why was she taking pictures of Emily with this guy? I think his name was Sebastian.
Yeah. You know, it's almost, it makes me wonder if she didn't orchestrate it and if she didn't maybe drug Emily.
Hmm.
Excuse
Because
me, guys. I'm sorry.
Paolo, when they did the autopsy, they found drugs in his system where he was drugged.
Yeah. And the way Emily, we don't get a lot from that Cambodia trip, but the way Emily described it, she did seem very out of it. So that's possible that she drugged Emily, sent her back with this guy, snapped the photo, and then when she arrived, she, Kristen took the guy out and then said, "Oh my gosh, he was attacking you, and we have to, you know."
The
There were
other thing, I'm glad you pointed out about her attacking the guy. The night they're in Chile and they're disposing of this body, I think about how exhausting carrying a body in the desert, digging a hole in the middle of the night, everything that they had to do to get rid of the evidence. How exhausting, and is it possible to like even get all that done in one night without someone seeing you?
yeah, that was really weird, and I guess the author would say, well, it's a very remote area because they always travel to these really remote kind of places. And it seemed like in Chile, they were even more so off the beaten path.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seemed like a lot for two, what were described as kind of small ladies to,
I
dispose of
imagine
this
this
body.
actor maybe weighed at least, 100, 200 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I would say so. Yeah. Um, but yeah, the more I think about it now, I'm glad you brought that up. It does seem like maybe she orchestrated Cambodia too.
Mhm.
And that kind of worked. It gave Kristen what she wanted because Emily depended on her so much after that attack. Even though they were living in completely different places, Emily talked about how Kristen was there for her, night and day on the phone and sent her food to her house and all of these different things that she did. And when Kristen realizes that's not going to be enough, that Emily's actually starting to heal from this, that's when she orchestrates another one.
Another
Oh my
event.
gosh. um, so yeah, we will hopefully go on a beach trip this summer, Allison, but nothing like this, I promise.
Nothing like that.
Just relaxation, good vibes,
Yeah,
nothing like this at all.
absolutely.
um, yeah, I was thinking to myself, if I after that first trip, I would not be going out of the country. I
No.
wouldn't. I would be too scared. And something else the book kind of brought up, which I thought was interesting, is initially Kristen and Emily think that Paulo is a backpacker from Spain because that's where he was living at the time. So they think he's from Spain. And they kind of see him as this sort of vagabond sort of person. He's just kind of traveling around. He doesn't really have any roots anywhere. And so they assume no one will look for him. But the catch is he's actually not originally from Spain. He's an American citizen. And that changes the game. And that's interesting to me too, because you do realize that being an American citizen, overseas, it does hold some weight, as far as trying to seek justice for some of these crimes. And it also didn't hurt that Paulo's parents were very wealthy business people. That was when the investigation really amped up, which is pretty sad to think about because you think about like all of these people in these countries that, are murdered and have violence perpetrated against them, and justice is never really, you know, gotten for them. But with Paulo, all of these resources and this money that's put behind it, they, you know, really amp up the investigation, and they're able to have the LA police look into stuff, the Chile police is looking into stuff, and so
Yeah. And
yeah,
Kristen, she tries to paint him as a bad guy.
yeah, she
And
had no remorse, none.
yeah, and so when like they start revealing details about him, he's a cancer survivor and he's backpacking as a way to celebrate his, recovery.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I liked that comment from Ryan. I had to put it up there. It's pretty funny. um yeah, that because initially, we are thinking, well, maybe she was attacked, maybe she was. But once all that information came out about Paulo, I just knew this was a good guy. This was
Yeah.
somebody who was just trying to live his life. He had he had beaten a horrific disease. He was trying to go see the world. He had saved up money for this trip, and here Kristen is to end it all.
Yes. Part of her manipulative plan.
Oh yeah. Well, if you don't have anything else, Allison,
I think we're good.
think we're good. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap this up, guys. I appreciate everyone who tuned into the live chat. This was a lot of fun, and I hope that we can do it again sometime. Maybe Allison and I will go on a little beach trip and read a beach read together.
Oh, that would be
Maybe we'll
great.
do that, and we'll come back and do a chat on that. But yeah, so much fun reading this book and chatting with you about it, Allison. And thanks everyone for showing up. Hope I'll see you in the next one. And we're gonna go eat some Mexican food. So
Sure.
bye, guys.
Bye.